Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Wherever you are in the world, welcome to the PPC Unfiltered podcast with Corey Lindholm, he's there, or maybe there, and I'm Michael Nadalin. And today we're going to be talking about a topic that is important because it's probably the most important thing to guide the success in a Google Ads account and a relationship with a client, and then purely just the success of the business, which is audits. Now, there are so many ways people do audits. It could be an account audit, a business audit, auditing like the client in general. And when we talk about this, there's technical ways to do it. There's the high level way of doing it as well. Corey and I do things very differently. And before our call today, or just then, Corey was telling me some stuff about that, how he does audits or how he never does audits. So we can talk about that. But Corey, how you going, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How you been?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, even though we've just been off another chat, I'm good. I'm feeling even better than before that call. So
yeah, it was fun.
Let's chat about audits. And I would love you to start off with, because I know you've got a very different approach to me. And I would love to piggyback off what you're saying, and also just chop and change in there, and then I can talk about how I do it, or we'll see how it flows, mate. So let's start off with that thing you just said before about audits. So a lot of agencies and people do audits as a way to get clients in. So explain your psychology around audits and how you never do them.
So I'm laughing, watcher, viewer. I'm laughing because the look of shock on Michael's face when I said this, it just cracked me up. So a lot of agencies, almost everybody offers audits as like a free way of doing lead generation or whatever. It's like, hey, we'll take a look at the account. We'll give you these like bullet points or whatever. And you guys do that too, right? You do the free audits to some degree?
Yeah. But it's hard.
So and I'm not hating on that.
I'll explain a bit more. But yeah, let's go. I'll keep letting you go, mate.
I was just gonna say, and Michael had mentioned in our conversation, agencies offer that or whatever for free, and I was like, I never do that. I've literally not one time that I can remember have ever done a free audit of any kind. Now that might be like, I can see agencies just be like, oh, bro, you're missing out on the clients. I'm like, I have never lost a client because I didn't do a free audit. When I talk to them, they understand how freaking valuable my brain is, because this is what I nerd out on. This is like my passion for doing this. This is what I think about every day. This is what I do to make money for over almost a decade here. Like, I'm not just going to give you like this free template that then you go and hire another agency and be like, here, you guys just do what Corey told us to do. I just don't see the value in that. And like, my time is so valuable. Like, and it's just me respecting myself, respecting my time, respecting my, limited resource that is my time. If I'm just going to give everybody an audit, and not to like brag about any kind of popularity, but I'd be having to do audits all the time for free. And there's no way I could possibly make money doing that. I might have more clients, but are those the type of clients that I'm looking for, that are just looking for something for free? I'm personally not in that boat by any means. I like higher end clients to sell, large SKU counts, maybe higher AOVs, more e-commerce based. In order for me to audit those accounts, my average audit is probably anywhere from like 8 to 12 hours, to be honest with you. And that includes automating a lot of those like normal checkpoints. So you can imagine me trying to do that for free. There's just no way I could be viable as a business. So I've never done it. I never probably will do it, guys. So you're not changing my mind on this more than likely, because again, I just think it's such a valuable thing to be able to look at an account and give them, here's what I would recommend that you're going to be doing high level, or here's just some like really big fires that we probably need to address very quickly. I could understand an agency doing that because some of those things are just obvious. We do this all the time. We go into the conversion section, we see that there's some things that aren't working properly, or we see that there's like search and display being combined into the same campaign. And there's like things that we could just see really quickly, or there's branded search terms showing up in the non-branded search campaigns. Like, really easy. It takes us 10 minutes to do that stuff. But for me, I don't know that that's that valuable to some, like, I get it as a lead, like in a way to attract leads and clients to show that you know what you're doing. But honestly, I usually will take 25 minutes to meet with somebody. To me, it's more about the personalities. Are we going to vibe? Are you like, you seem like a cool enough person that I could develop a relationship around? Do you give me those red flags we just talked about in previous video? Some of those things that are like, I don't know if this is going to work well. We might need another call, which usually means this isn't going to work out. Like another call to really just make sure you're not going to be a nightmare client. You know what I mean? So personally, I don't do them. I just think they're too valuable. There's ways to automate the process, but I don't know that that is really worth anybody's time.
That's awesome. And just to scroll back, when I asked you, you're a fun-loving, wonderful guy. You've always got a smile on your face. This is the only time I've seen you dead serious. I was like, fuck, this is weird. So not weird. It's just like very just like shocking. So and it's wonderful you said that, because I've just reflected on, I've just had like flashbacks where every time I've done a paid audit, that client, they turned into a high-paying client that have stayed for a long time. So it's also, it's getting them to invest in you. But if you give someone something for free, the quote is, people value nothing less than something that's free. When it's free, they don't value it. And then by association, they don't value you. Now, I've had a lot of clients that I've just done an audit, but it's just like a spot check. That's more just showing expertise. But even when I think about that, the return, the amount of audits I do for free that turn into clients versus the amount that I've done pay that turn into clients, there's many that are higher. And I'm actually thinking now that I'm just going to do paid orders. Now, if they're a new business, because we work with a lot of businesses that, are making millions of dollars, but they haven't really run advertising before. So there's nothing really to audit in the account. Putting a strategy plan together is pretty easy. Just run some Google ads to a high quality, high converting landing page, run some Facebook ads. Let's just see how it goes. We've got the track record of success. We know it. But if they've been running a big account, that's where either they'll jack your ideas, and that's a big issue I have, is you do an audit and they just leave. They just take all the good ideas, which, no one wins.
Yep.
And then because they don't value it as much as they should, and you don't get remunerated, or they don't turn to a client, and then they don't want you to become an agency partner because you did it for free. So that's right. I've just kind of taken that on a different tangent, but to bring it back, I just want to say, like, thanks even just for that point, because that reminds, like, the audit is the most valuable thing. And depending on how you do it, if you go do 8 or 12 hour deep ones like you, or like you're just doing a really high level one where you can see all the big gaps in the companies, just don't undervalue the power of an audit, and a paid audit as well.
100%. Yeah, there's so much in that. And I mean, for me, the audits are something I really do enjoy, but it takes a lot out of me because it's a lot of data analysis. And again, that's just because the accounts that I'm working on, like, it's a lot of product data. It's a lot of like fixing things in the feed, like looking through the feed and making sure we're up to date on the best practices for feed management and like the newer fields that might have been implemented recently. Like, there's a lot there, and it's a fun re-education process every time I do an audit, because it challenges, am I up to date on everything that I need, especially if it's a particular like healthcare industry where things have to be sensitive or whatever. I have to just double check, make sure Google hasn't changed the policies as I'm auditing the accounts. It's really good. I definitely encourage agencies and marketers to do audits as opposed to just not doing them at all, because I do think you can learn a lot, and it's a great way to educate your staff as well, and make sure that they are spot checking the right areas. Are they prioritizing things correctly? For me, a big benefit I feel for the client when I'm doing the audits is I like to create a quadrant, sort of like a quadrant. And essentially I think we've talked about this in a past call, but it's really, high impact, low time. There's a list of items we need to do for that. There's, low impact, low time. Okay, high time, high impact, high time. Those are going to be second. And then everything else essentially falls to, low impact, low time. That's going to be third, and low impact, high time. Probably never going to do those things because they obviously have no impact and they take forever to do it. There's probably no way to do it unless we can automate it. Then cool. So that's the way I like to look at it in terms of a quadrant analysis. Of course, I'm going to give them more than just that. I also use a tool. Do you guys use any software for audits, or just internally built tools?
I've internally built tools because I don't find that any of those external ones give any insights. But Keep going on, mate.
Okay,
I'm
I
listening.
will say my one of my favorite, and I'm an affiliate with these guys, so disclaimer. But I seriously love them. And again, I am only an affiliate with products that I actually believe in because I use them. Like I use them because I didn't want to do all this stuff myself.
Mm.
I didn't have a better way of automating it myself, at least at the time. My favorite auditing tool is TrueClicks, and they've been around for a minute. Their CEO is brilliant. I'm good buddies with him. He's fantastic. He really knows his stuff. Like I read an Adanalysis blog article from him forever ago. This was like in the green AdWord days, like back in the days,
Yeah,
and
wow.
it was this like eight-part post on bid management, and it was like blew my mind how much I didn't know about like just data analysis and bid management and thinking in terms of bubble charts and ways to visualize the data. I was like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. And this was like a decade ago, but it really so anyway, I believe in the owners. I think this is a great auditing tool. I use it as a part of my audits as well. So it's definitely a tool I'd recommend for agencies out there, or if you're just a business and you want to sign up and throw it through a regular process of auditing, highly encourage it for people.
Awesome. And what type of
No,
things do you
no.
get from that? So that software, TrueClicks, and if they want to become a sponsor, more than welcome. Is what
Yes,
are you
please.
getting? What insights are you getting from that usually?
Yeah, so one of the things I love is, and this, I don't want this to turn into a big advertisement, of course, but like
Yeah.
one of the things I like is it will kind of give you like a Q&A of like, what's important to the business, what are their goals, which means they have to have those things in order for us to give us specific or like very specific results. So it can do like a very quick Ngram analysis based on the max CPA or like the minimum ROAS that you need for the account. So it can do those Ngram analysis very quickly. It can push those changes into the account for you once it's identified the areas that you want to change. It can also monitor for performance fluctuations if you don't want to have a script do that for you in the account. There is a bunch there. It's also just like for me, a clean and quick, efficient way as an agency owner to do all this stuff that goes beyond like the recommendations section of Google. It's like it covers those, but it also covers like things that unless you've done this for several years, you wouldn't even think about doing. I'll let you guys explore the tools yourselves to really find this stuff and let their sales
Mm.
team sell it a little better than I can. I use it all the time, but it gives you a nice clean output as well. It's like a PDF version. Here's all the action items list, like organized by priority, which is awesome because you don't usually get that.
Yeah.
And then it'll also give you, if you want to get super in the weeds, a spreadsheet version, an Excel version that goes into like really the nitty gritty of which campaign, which ad group, what's going on, like should this be paused, should this be moved to another ad group, whatever it is. Fantastic tool, can't recommend it enough. But definitely I would recommend either build out your own internal tool or use a software, so that way when you're doing these audits for clients or you're auditing your own account, you're not spending all this time like looking at Google's
Yeah.
recommendation section and writing that down and then doing your own analysis that's going to take hours and hours. It's just costing you money. Get a tool and just pay for it. Stop being cheap,
Yeah.
or design your own tool better like
Yeah.
Michael does.
That's the interesting thing because I was chatting to my mate Liam last night and we talk about all these tools and softwares like Optimizer and, all these things that could be on AppSumo or these companies. And I'm always going like, but what's the actual practical thing that's coming out of it? And I've got a bunch of them that I never use because it doesn't actually give me something that moves the needle or shows insight as well. And then what I've found over time is by just using an API or a software to pull the raw data out of Google Ads or your analytics into a Google Sheet, if you just know basic Excel formulas, index match, sum ifs, all that stuff, you can actually build out a template that you plug and play audit clients and then you do it. I've got that one for e-commerce and it's really cool. It's really cool. I'll show it to you. I'll actually send it to you because I feel like you'd get a lot of value out of it.
Please.
Mike Rhodes and other people have been writing scripts to do this. I've kind of been doing this for a bit longer. But the issue with scripts is, or when you use someone else's things, is if you don't know how to manipulate the script a bit, or if you don't know how to manipulate the sheet a bit, you're still being stuck into like a box. So even though it's on a script to a sheet, you're still pretty much treating it like a software. When you've got the practical skills for just Google Sheets, just learn Excel formulas, you can do some automated reporting and auditing really, really fast and easy. And it's an asset that you're building for yourself. That's the beautiful thing. that you don't have to pay
Absolutely.
management fees on, and you just constantly will just get a higher return because it's also tailored based on what works for you and what works for your clients rather than just all the blog posts online and all the videos like you should look for this and this and this. You can
Oh,
do it
there's a
more based
million
on,
checklists nowadays.
and
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
And like when we look at, talking about auditing, it comes down to the old idea of a checklist. And people are like, what's the checklist? The audit checklist and then also the management checklist. And whilst they are wonderful, that if you're at the beginning of your journey, you look at all of them, you're like, okay, I implement all of them. And across all the clients, you start to go, well, what things actually work versus just the things that are just added to the checklist so they could charge more or make it look meatier. And for auditing, I've noticed there are a few things, but even it's case by case. That's the thing. And the first thing you do before you do an audit is, like you're saying, you got to speak to them, figure out what their goal is. Like, what's
Exactly.
what's the account goal, what's their business outcome. And then once you know the business outcome or goal, most of the time they don't even know that. So you've got to get clarity on that.
Yeah.
And then when you reverse engineer that, you go, well, what percentage of your sales or leads come from Google Ads versus Facebook versus organic versus offline versus referrals, whatever it is. So then within that goal, if it's to say we want to make 10 mil a year, sometimes people go, well, Google Ads has got to get that 10 mil. It's like, no, just ask the client what percentage of that sales do they think will come from Google Ads. Oh, I want 2%. I mean 20%. Okay, so we need for this year 2 mil from Google Ads. Then from that we go, well, what's from that? You either reverse engineer what's your typical return on ad spend if it's e-commerce or even lead gen, and then figure out what would be the budget for the year and then the monthly budget. And then within that budget, you start going, because if you've got a budget of $1 million a year, it's very different if you've got 100,000 a year, because the amount of campaigns you need to do, the keywords you go after, the structure, the reporting, the expectations are so significantly different. But if you don't know the business goal, what percentage comes from the ad channel, and then what your budget is, no matter what audit you do, you might provide some audit that's perfect for a client who's spending 10 times more or 10 times less, but it's not going to be relevant for them. And then when you don't know those things, you're never going to get success. You could be saying all these things that sound good, but they're never actually going to move that business or client to the outcome they want. And that's what really comes back to the consultation is you can download the most perfect optimization list or audit list for Google Ads, but if you don't know the business's goal and outcome, nothing you'll ever do will, well, not nothing, but most of the time you think you're going in this direction, but you really should have just been going here. And like a small shift, you could have done less work and got a huge, like a significantly higher outcome in a shorter time.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Like in the beginnings where I was like, and this still happens where there's a client that's like, look, I don't have that much in our budget right now to like pay you for 8 to 12 hours. And I get that. It's totally fair, but it's a big account. And they're like, well, the max we could probably do is 3 hours. And that has been a really fun and challenging exercise over the years because I've watched myself change what areas that I focus on for those 3 hours. And one of the most important areas for me that I've had to correct is, what does the output look like? And being really clear about that with the client, because I'll tell them like, look, if you only have 3 hours, I'm not going to like do the audit and then write out a story or build a slide deck for free like after the 3 hours, because it's just not fair. Like it takes so much work to conceptualize and write this data story or whatever it is and make it actionable for you guys to actually understand what I've actually found, right? So if I've got 3 hours and I make this really clear, or even sometimes with the 8 to 12, I'll just ask them right away, like, do you need some fancy presentation where, like your logo is there and the colors are matching and, everything just is like, shortened to, 3 bullet points a slide? Or is an email okay? Where like we just get straight to the fucking point. Like, what do we need to do? Is there everything? Is everything cool with conversion tracking? Just let me know. Cool. Conversion tracking, we're good. Is branded search, like, are we maximizing what we think is possible? Okay, cool. Let's move on. It doesn't need to be, in my opinion, most of the time, 3 hours of just making this report look pretty. I think that's a huge waste of time, and it's a waste of the client's money. But unless you ask them about the presentation, they're just going to expect it's going to look fancy, and they're not going to think, oh yeah, that probably took them like 30 minutes, but you knew it actually took 3 hours and
Yeah.
like almost all of your energy to put that stupid thing together. So
Slide decks, especially if you're an analytical person like us, are really hard to do because they're more creative. So I spend last few weeks, I've been so stressed. I'm running an agency with lots of clients. I got an employee. I do payroll, do all these things. I'm fine. Updating the pitch deck has been a fucking nightmare. Like updating like our position deck, and I've been doing it with my partner. She's an outstanding designer, but even still, when she's designing it, me, I'm like so overwhelmed. So simple, like presentations of it are probably better, especially if you're working with a very analytical person, because they're not going to be putting like these beautiful like little graphs and stuff like, oh, they may, but it's not going to be like a beautiful graph. It will be very just like early 2000s graph. It's really interesting you say that, because there's the consultation side at the start, which I was just mentioning. You've got to figure out what they want. Then there's the audit of the account, where you're actually spending that time like diving deep, looking for stuff. And then the next is just like the actual presentation. So there's a lot that goes into it, and any of those steps that are done at a lower rate or lower, like done poorly, if you don't know what the outcome is, no matter what the analysis will be, it'll be poor. And also that report. The consultation starts good, but then you're not good at the audit side. The outcome's not going to be. You could do this 10 out of 10, the second, the audit 10 out of 10, but if you don't present it to the person properly or communicate it properly, it doesn't matter. You've got to figure out the business goals, seen all the gaps, but if it's not clearly communicated practically as well, that's where the gap is. And it's just, I feel like this is the same with any part of business. Like, oh, Corey, you're doing Google Ads, but they don't see all the things that go into Google Ads. Or someone's like, I want to buy a website for $1,000. And it's like, do you realize it's not just like, I'm just like, there's just like a page. There's the copywriting on the page. There's the design. There's all these elements. So there's so many ways that audits can be go poorly because someone's missing out on a vital step, either the consultation, the actual audit, or the reporting / communication at the end. And I suppose now when I think about it, that's why like free audits aren't valuable, because you're spending hours for something that may not go anywhere. And if you're doing it for free, you're just going to rush through it. And most of the time when I'm doing free audits, I'm just like picking up the cherry picks. So I'm like, I'll do it. It may lead to something, but I don't know if they're invested. And most of the time people just take it.
Which every agency is going to do.
Yeah,
exactly. And I've seen that. I'm sure you have too, where they'll get an audit from a free audit, quote unquote free audit, for like 5 different agencies, and they all say the same thing. I know, because as a consultant, I see these audits, and I'm just like, oh, jeez, it's just the same old crap. And it's like, dude, I could have told you this. You should have just had a call with me. I could have told you in 5 minutes. Like, and we've probably already talked about these things, and it's just one of those things. They just want to get second, third, fifth opinions because their brain is
fine for the
all over the place with everything, and they just. It's fine. Yeah.
But it is fine if, like, when I think about it, if I was doing that, I would do that as well. But then you got to think, if you're the specialist, the individual, this is your time. It's a non-renewable resource, time. It won't come back. And people who are probably not willing to pay for that time, especially when they see your expertise with your track record of success, they see that you've been on podcasts, they see you put out content, they still expect like a free audit. They're probably like low quality. Like, I wouldn't expect someone like, who are the people I look up to? Someone like Tony Robbins or Ray Dalio. Would I expect them to do a free audit on my company? No way.
Tony Robbins, can you just take 20 minutes to just look at my business? No way.
Free, and then write it down, and then I may get back to you. And if I don't, I'm just going to ghost you as well. So, no, I think that's actually really important for audits. It's this has once again been another unfiltered approach. But, audits are an interesting thing because people do it for free, people do it paid. Some people do the very high-level consulting. Some people do the very analytical. Some people use it as a sales pitch. Some people actually just use it as a pure, like, a product as itself, that it's like, here's this, I don't expect you to work with me, versus some people go, here's this, this is actually a sale, like, I'm trying to sell you right now. And that's why audits can be, like, done poorly or done really well, depending on, is it an audit to actually, here's something that you can apply yourself and our business relationships over, or here's something that I've kind of given you some stuff, I haven't given you the other, a bit of push and pull, and I want you to work with me. And that's where it gets messy.
Yeah, I was just going to add one more thing as another reason that people kind of forget about this, but I don't want to scare anybody, but like there are, it depends on how cheap you go, maybe where you found the person, whatever. But also, guys, just be careful. This is your data. Like, don't just give it away to an agency without thinking this through. Like, that is pretty valuable data. And believe me, there's got to be agencies out there that have let's just say not the right intentions for giving you a free audit. They might just be like completely mining your data and putting it into a
Yes.
database along with 1,000 other companies that they've audited. So just be careful, man. Like that is your data. Don't just give it away to just anybody. Meet the person. Is that person really going to be doing the audit? Like, yeah, you could get really messy with contracts and NDAs and stuff, but I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you got to pull the trigger at some point on working with a person. And I'm not saying you should be like overly cautious, but I'm just saying do be cautious. Don't just work with anybody that's going to give you a quote unquote free audit. If you are the more cautious person, watch Michael and I's content. Like we give you guys so much value. Like look at our videos. We've talked about things that we look for, that we prioritize. You can probably do those free audits yourself, to be honest. And maybe this isn't good for us, but like I don't care. I want you guys to know like you could probably do some of the basic stuff yourself. Look at the Google recommendations section. Don't take it at face value. Google has a reason they're giving you some of those recommendations, but just take them at face value, or don't take them at face value, rather. Just look at them quickly and take them with a grain of salt, rather, and say, okay, are some of these things that we need to take care of? There's a million checklists out there, but rather than just getting bombarded with making the perfect audit checklist, again, what is the primary focus? What is the primary focus for the business? That was a really good point that you made. And then just do the basics: conversion tracking, branded versus non-branded,
Yeah.
shopping versus search. Where is most of your money being spent on versus where are most of your conversions that are not branded coming from? And fill the gaps. You guys are going to get better at it as you get more familiar and you watch more videos and things, but don't overthink it. Use software if you need to. And if you really want to take it seriously, hire someone that will not do it just for free and that's all they're interested in. Like probably work with someone that can like work with the data for a few hours, and they charge a lot and there's a reason for that because they know what they're doing. And then I think that was a really good point you made. Last thing I'll say here is there's three parts. It's the Q&A, so we understand what the point of the audit is and what we're going to be focused on. Number two is going to be the actual audit itself, and number three is the presentation. I don't know about you, Michael, I'm thinking like 20, 60, 20 is maybe a fair balance. Would you say that's good? Like 60% of your time in the audit that they're paying you for should really be the actual analysis and audit, or maybe it could be a
Yeah.
little different.
I'm a bit different. I'm like, it's hard because, yeah, I don't want to open up another conversation, but if it's not communicated properly, and most
Yeah.
people, when they need an audit, if they've done things really well, they need to still be explained why that something's important. If they're super beginner and they're spending a lot
Yeah.
of money, they've still got to be explained to. So the education bit, it's still, even though we're working on an account, the more important part is the communication to the human. One, the communication of extracting the information at the start from them to us.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the third part is getting our information to them and actually make sure it's processed beyond just the report, beyond just the data. Do they understand it? Will they apply it? Will they get results? And if they're seeing gaps, will they trust us to come back to us? So that percentage,
100%.
I'm not 100% sure. It's so hard because it's, once again, it depends.
Everybody
on
will
the
be
business.
different.
And I feel like for you go so deep in the data, which, for me, I'd probably be 25, 50, 25, or maybe like 30, 40, 30. It's just,
Sure.
I spend a lot of time talking to people because I realize the people are the problem, not the accounts.
Yeah. And really that's my point is and I hope the audience gets that too. I don't mean like to over focus on like, should we only be paying him this much for this amount of time? No, that's not my point. My point is to say probably most of the time should be thought of in that way of three different segments. And probably most of what you should be paying for is the audit itself, not the presentation. That's like the main point that I want to make there.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, Corey, I'll let you wrap this one up.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. This was a really fun time. I always enjoy talking to you, Michael. It's always a blast. I feel like it's educational for both of us, but hopefully the audience as well. Let us know, guys, if you're liking this content. If you have any topics or questions that we can address in a video, please let us know. You can find me on LinkedIn and YouTube. Michael, where can everybody find you?
LinkedIn, YouTube with Market Lead, and marketlead.com.au. So, Corey, thank you so much for your time today, mate. I love these conversations. I love you. I love the value that you offer the world. So I really appreciate it. So on behalf of myself and everyone, thank you, mate.
Thank you, brother. All right, we'll talk soon.
Awesome. See you, mate.